England is a white man's country, and I've seen Asians behave in manners as if they are better than their host. Just like on YouTube, figure your brain some new food. Hello people, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time on the channel, a special welcome to you. I ask that you check out the rest of my videos. If you like what you see, give them a thumbs up, leave a comment, but more than anything, I'm asking that you subscribe to the channel. So yesterday I did a video that was covering race and racism, where I asked the question, can white people see past my color? And because of that video, one of my subscribers reached out to me to ask me to cover racism in the UK, or my experiences of racism in the UK, because I've said many times that I've lived in the UK. I thought it was a very fair request. I didn't even realize that I've actually never covered any topic about my experience of living in the UK. So it's only right that I grant the request of my subscriber and tell you what I know about racism in the UK. As a disclaimer, what I'm going to say about the United Kingdom and racism is based upon my experience and solely my experience. I've lived in the UK for a calculative 8 to 10 years in the UK, meaning I didn't live in the UK for 10 years straight. There was one time I lived in the UK for 5 consecutive years, then I left, then I came back, then I left again, and I came back, and I did like 3 consecutive years. So altogether I've had like 10 years in the United Kingdom as a resident, mainly in the West Midlands, mainly the city of Birmingham. So when it comes to the United Kingdom, you can apply me, you can associate me to England. And when it comes to England, you can associate me with the West Midlands, in particularly Birmingham. I'm talking about Smethwick, West Bromwich, Erdington, Edgbaston, and all the surrounding areas. Those were my stomping grounds. Those were my playground. So let's get on to racism in the United Kingdom. First and foremost, let me say racism in the United Kingdom compared to racism in the United States of America is non-existent. So what I mean by that is the blatantness and the transparency of racism in the United States of America, where you see black people or people of color that are being assaulted or have injustice, blatant injustice against them being demonstrated. That I have never seen in the UK, and I've personally not experienced it myself. Again, this is based upon my experience and what I saw. So if someone else have a different experience, they're more than welcome to put it in the comment section. What I can tell you about the city of Birmingham. Birmingham, in my opinion, is divided into 3. You've got your white Birmingham, you've got your black Birmingham, and you've got your Asian Birmingham. And when I say Asian, I'm not talking about Chinese or Japanese or Indonesians or nothing like that. I'm talking about Indians, Pakistani, Bangladesh, those kind of Indians. The Asians that look black, but they're Asian. In Birmingham, most black people, we just bundle that group of people and we just call them Asians. Whether they're from Pakistan, whether they're from India, whether they're from Bangladesh, whether they're from Sri Lanka, from the black people point of view, they're all Asians. And blacks, we're just blacks. So you've got black British, which most black British are spawned from Jamaican and or West Indian families. So even black British that are born in Britain has some connection to the Caribbean. And then you have a smaller percentage that is linked to the continent of Africa directly and countries from Africa. So like I say, from my experience, there is no aggressive racism in the United Kingdom like the United States of America. But what I did experience in Birmingham is there is a blatant divide. So I'm going to try to explain this divide as best as possible. The divide after started with Asians, the Indians. I must first say the Indians of all races in England, they exercise and show the most prejudice, in my opinion. They show the most bias, in my opinion. The Indians, they stick together. And when I say they stick together, they stick together. In other words, there is a very slim chance of a black person being hired by an Indian. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm saying on a ratio of integration, there is a slim chance where Asians do business with black people. Asians will be quicker to associate and employ their own over black or white. And in my opinion, whether the Asians realize it or not, that behavior in a society where nations of all walks of life should be integrated, it strengthens and makes the line of segregation and prejudice very clear. So if Asians in the UK are crying for racism or unequal treatment, I would go out on a limb and says it is because of what they started. The Asians' behavior. The Asians behave as if they don't want to mingle with blacks or they don't even want to mingle with whites. I've always found it funny because England is a white man's country. And I've seen Asians behave in manners as if they are better than their host. They are better than the white people of England. For my Asian British people, let me say I cannot spend the time on this video to say how much percent does and how much percent doesn't. I'm not saying every single Asian person does that, but I'm speaking for the majority from what I experience. And when I start touching the white and the black, the same rule applies. I only speak for the majority. So in my opinion, again, Asian people in the United Kingdom are the ones that started this line of segregation. They are very to themselves and they're quicker to... Asian people will do business with you as long as money is coming from your hand to theirs. They won't so much do business with you if money is coming from their hand to yours. Asian people see it as if they are robbing their race to make the black race or the white race better off. And they did not come to England for that. They come to England to be rich, and they came to England to build their race and their family to be stronger. If you don't want to call it racism, it promotes prejudice and bias strongly on the line of racism. So let me get off the Asians for a minute and move on to the white. White British that I've experienced, they are different. White British, they will employ Asians, they will employ blacks. White British will associate with Asians, white British will associate with black, whether that is in a professional setting or a social setting. From what I see, white British does not exercise any level of bias or any level of prejudice towards black people. Again, I'm speaking on the majority. I'm not saying that you don't have white people in England who resent Asians and resent blacks for just being blacks and Asians. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm speaking of the majority and I'm speaking of my experience. Black people, majority of the black people, this is where it differs. From my experience, black people in the UK deals with black people. If they don't have to deal with the Asians, they don't deal with the Asians. If they don't have to deal with whites, they don't deal with whites. So you'll find most black people in the UK, Birmingham, West Midland in particularly, that they are more friends with blacks. They stick more with black. Again, you have your percentage that associate socially with whites. What I'm saying is, on a majority scale, blacks stick with black. So let me go over the three races again. Asians are all about Asians, and they display and exercise bias and prejudice towards black people and towards white people. But Asians will do business quicker with a white person than a black person. The white people in the UK, from my experience, they would socialize and they would do business or employ or work, anything they will associate with blacks or Asian. White people is more like, if they need the service and it's an Asian person that's got it, they'll take it. If they need the service and a black person that got it, they'll take it. Asian people is a bit more like, well, let me see if Raj can do it before I contact Dave. It's not that they won't socialize, but Asian people, in my opinion, if racism exists in Birmingham, Asian people, I would say, were at the forefront of it. I have white friends in the UK, but obviously most of my experience is in Black Birmingham. So I see from my experience where Asians would create this scornish kind of attitude towards black people. I give you an example. There was one time I wanted to have my car looked at in Smethwick, Birmingham. Someone told me where I could find a garage, and I drove to the garage. When I drove to the garage, I didn't realize that there were two garages in this unit. So I went to the one that my eyes caught first. It happened to be an Asian mechanic. And when I went there and I asked him, could you have a look at my car? I have a problem, blah, 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 blah. Before he addressed the car, he asked me, why didn't you go over there? You can go over there. They're your people. And when I look across where he was pointing, I realized that there was a black mechanic over there. I found that to be racist. I found it to be biased. So if I'm going to be honest, I've never really felt racism in the UK from a white person, but I felt what could be construed as racism from Asians in the UK. There was one incident with a white person. I leave it up to you guys to say whether or not you think it is bias, prejudice, or racism. I drove a 2005, I believe, Jaguar back in the day. And I took my wife to a job interview at a big company in Birmingham. And while I was in the parking lot, my wife went in for the interview and I dropped my seat back. And while I was waiting, a white man walked up to me and he says, excuse me, you know, there is a waiting room for the chauffeurs there and you can have coffee and tea. And I says, thank you, okay. And it was only after he walked off that I realized that me being black and this being a 20,000 pound car, I had to be the chauffeur. This could not be my car. Was it racism? What would you call it? I didn't label it, so I leave it to you guys to put a label on that. So that was one experience that I've had in England with a white person. Another experience I've had, again, it was with an Asian person. They were running a printery shop and I wanted some books published. Well, my book was already published. I just wanted some more copies and I wanted it fast and I wanted a big volume. And when I took a copy of the book and I asked the guy, can you manufacture 5,000 of this for me? And he said, sure. And right before I left, he asked me, is it your book? I said, yes, I published it and everything. And even though he had already told me, yes, he could do it, about an hour later, he called me and he says, oh, I'm sorry, for one reason or another, I'm not going to be able to do it. Again, I leave that to you guys to label it. I didn't label it. It was just one of those things that made me go, So, yeah, living in Birmingham for all those years, you just kind of understand how each race behaves. But in regards to aggressive racism, I didn't see a lot of that. I didn't witness a lot of that. So, all in all, racism is everywhere. As long as you're dealing with human beings, they're going to be racism. You're going to experience racism from one degree to another. But overall, I would not rate my experience in the UK as a country where I felt aggressive racism towards me because I was black. No, like I say, if anyone else that's listening to me live in the UK, Birmingham, West Midlands in particular, you guys can share your story. We'll be glad to read it and be happy to comment on it as well. But let's hope that this was an insight for most of you guys, and let's hope that this satisfied a subscriber that asked me. That's pretty much all I have to say about this one, people. As you know, on my channel, I appreciate agreement and disagreement, thumbs up and even thumbs down, because at the end of the day, people, each one teach one. We've reached the end of my video, and that in itself is a support that I truly appreciate. Other ways that you can support this channel is by giving this video a thumbs up. But the most important way to support my channel is to hit that subscribe button so you do not miss out on any of my future uploads. The third way to support this channel is to go to my Teespring account and purchase any of my merch. And the fourth way that you can support this channel is joining me on Patreon to give me a contribution to help me to do what I do here on YouTube. Once again, I want to thank all of you guys for checking out my video and ask that you continue to join me, ENT Sabas, here on YouTube to see where my journey takes me. Until next time, peace.